I'm Corbitt with DVAuction, here with your feeder flash for Wednesday, August the 13th, brought to you in part by Fairpiece, that revolutionary product that is scientifically proven. Anytime cattle are exposed to stress, Fairpiece helps. Whether it's weaning, breeding, both bulls and heifers or cows, shipping, processing, and even harvest. Anything you're doing with cattle, Fairpiece helps. Address the stress. Go to fairpiece.com. The obvious is confirmed, and you wouldn't have thought either of these two things, if you weren't really on the market, would have been a big deal or would have been a surprise to anybody. But boxed beef prices spike. Well, you would normally think that they would spike. You know, Labor Day's coming up, school's fixing to start. They're coming out with more indications that the economy is stable. We've got gas prices going down. Your food prices have kind of stabilized also. That the tariffs are not hurting so far as we can tell. And the packers have slashed the slaughter. So we're down around 9% compared to a year ago. That's a lot when you're talking about the slaughter, which is fairly consistent. Yeah, you would think that boxed beef prices would spike, but it happened on Tuesday and it was big news. The other thing that shouldn't appear obvious, but it was confirmed and caused a big shakeup, was the USDA put out a bearish crop report. We're going to have a bumper crop, record big corn crop. Now you would have thought, well, anybody could have told you that. If you've driven through the Midwest this summer or talked to anybody that has, anybody would tell you that it sure looked like the biggest crop we'd ever had. I've been through there a few times this summer, and it's just unbelievable how good it looks out there. And everybody that tells you, and even the old timers say they've never seen it look this good. There were some places in Nebraska that got dry early, but they got a lot of moisture late. But Iowa's the main thing, and Iowa's just been perfect all summer long, and everything going good, and even got good corn yields outside of the corn belt. So you know, it's not a surprising thing that the corn crop's going to be big, and that's very bearish for corn prices. They increased the acreage devoted to corn too. You'd have thought they'd have hit that earlier in the growing season, but up 1.9 million acres, and they raised the average yield. And this is huge. This is monster. We've never seen this before. The average yield on your corn crop is 188.8 bushels to the acre. And that just surprises me because I'm not a farmer and never have been. I've been on top of the grain markets most of my life. I used to do the national grain markets for the United States, both weekly and daily, out of St. Joe when I managed the USDA market reporting office there. So I'm very familiar with the grain markets, but I'm not a farmer and never have been. But one of my friends that is a farmer, I remember him once telling me, and he comes from Nottoway County, Missouri. That's extreme northwest Missouri, and that's about the biggest and best state, or biggest and best county for corn in the state of Missouri. And he said, you know, he said, I always hear all these people talking about these, you know, these yields, 200 and some bushels and all this. He said, in my life, I have never seen a cornfield that averaged 200 bushel to the acre. And now they're saying all the corn, you know, that's measured there at 188.8 bushels to the acre. That is monster. I mean, monster. They increased the corn crop from 16, from the guess, the highest guess of any of your analysts was 16.323 billion bushels, and it came out at 16.742. I mean, this was a monster. and your corn went down big, but I would have thought maybe it went down more than it did. It was down $13 a bushel there, or 13 cents a bushel, I mean, but you would have thought it would have been even maybe better than that. But a lot of things happened on Tuesday, unlike Monday, which was really a dead day and not much news in the cattle business. But on Tuesday, we also heard that the Alberta Beef Producers Association, which is a state or province cattlemen's association up there in Canada, they withdrew from the Canadian Cattlemen's Association. Now that would be bigger than if Texas Cattle Feeders and Kansas Livestock Association both withdrew from the NCBA. I mean, it would be huge. But you know, they were just unhappy with the way that the National Association was directing things there. That's unlike here in the U.S., where the big state associations, they run the National Association. So they tell NCBA what to do, and they've got all the votes, and they totally run over all the smaller states that have the small producers, and even your western states that have the big ranches, because they don't have that concentration of cattle. They got a lot of cattle, but don't have the concentration of cattle like they do in the feedlots in Texas and Kansas. But I just thought that was interesting, and just for food for thought, there in Canada, their beef checkoff is $4.50 a head. So you can think about that. Let's talk about Brangus bulls. Brangus bulls are built to last, built for business, and built for your herd. If you're ready to invest in genetics that add value where it matters, maybe it's time for you to GoBrangus.com. And that's the website you go to for more information, GoBrangus.com. Let's talk about your board on Tuesday. It was a wild one. August live cattle futures up 275 at 235.82. October up 292 at 229.02. And your back months all up big, up 202 to 255. And it's all because of what I've been talking about your box beef spiking and your grain and your corn prices going down. It wasn't quite as wild as when it was going down on Friday, but almost seems more sustainable, as it wasn't a rumor that was causing it to do that. It was truth. It was confirmation, and that's what they like is down. Put it down in black and white. Give me confirmation on something. So I think this is a more sustainable jump as compared to Friday's fall. And your feeder cattle really went up with the grain prices going down and that record corn crop announced there. August feeder cattle up 5.15 at 345.75. And that's got it back out in front of your index levels. September feeder cattle up 5.65 at 346.25. And your back months all consistently higher, just about like the front two, up 5.42 to up 5.67. Now here's your grains going down, or basically just corn. December new crop corn down 13.25 cents a bushel at 394.5. It's under 4, likely to stay that way. Beans for new crop November up 21.5 cents. So your corn stole, they upped the acreage on corn. It's got to come from somebody. It came from the beans, and that was positive for beans. Up 21.5 cents a bushel at 10.32 3/4. Hard red winter wheat for September down 8.25 cents at 5.10 3/4. Let's talk about your fat cattle market. Your only sales we saw on a direct basis negotiated out of your 5 area was in Kansas on Tuesday, and Kansas sold about 150 head of fed cattle at 232. $3 lower than last week. Why would they do it? You find out and you tell me, because I don't have any idea why somebody would do that, but that happened. But we had your market maker on Tuesday like we always do, and we love Stockman's Livestock Market in Yankton, South Dakota. They had 1,200 head of fed cattle in overnight. They ended up with 1,900 total for the fed cattle auction there. The conventional cattle, fat steers and heifers, bring $240.5 to $252. That was $3 to $4.50 higher. Awfully good market. They didn't have a good test on drug-free cattle, but they did have non-implanted, and likely more of the non-implanted than they did conventional, and they sell from $244 to $253.5. So great market at Yankton on their fed cattle offering there. Gary Marks did tell me that there were a lot of two-way cattle in there, cattle that weren't completely finished. I mean, they still had a lot of weight to them, but maybe 1,200–1,300 pounds. That's a feeder up there in South Dakota there, and so the local cattle feeders that are scared of these feeder cattle prices, they likely want to get in on some of those, and they drove the prices up on those that returned to feed, as they think they want to keep them and feed them for another month or two and add some more value to them. But another thing that happened this week at Stockman's Livestock in Yankton, South Dakota, they had the highest slaughter bull price that we'll likely ever see in the history of the world. Now, I've been wrong on everything else, so I guess, maybe in next week sometime we'll hear about one that's higher. But SoCup had bulls in there. It was a Piedmontese bull. If you know what that is, those are those big, heavy, double muscle bulls there, kind of like a Belgian blue or something, but you don't see that many Belgian blues in commercial production. You do see some Piedmontese around, and the Piedmontese was the big price that I give you from New Holland, Pennsylvania here a month or two ago, and it was a big price, and that was just $2 a pound. But this week at Stockman's Livestock in Yankton, they sold a big double muscle Piedmontese bull. It weighed 1,805 pounds and bring $283. Wow, that's $5,108 for a slaughter bull. My God. But talk about your box beef cutout values. They were a wow too. Choice cuts $390.58, up $9.06 just for Tuesday's trade, and that's your afternoon quote. It was up nearly that much in the morning and then gained a little more ground. Selects $365.64, up $603. There were 105 loads on Tuesday. That's pretty decent movement. So it likely, like I said earlier, your school is starting, Labor Day's here. They found some of these wholesalers, wholesale buyers, really close to the knife, and just buying product hand to mouth. I mean, just as fast as they can and frantically. Slaughter on through Tuesday or on Tuesday was 114,000 for it, so a good bounce back on Tuesday, and we're starting to see that there are some plants that are closing on Monday, and then several that are closing on Friday, so that kind of distorts our view early in the week. But just like last week, on Tuesday it caught back up, and through the first 2 days of the week, your estimated cattle slaughter 217,000. That's 1,000 more than last week, 17,000 less than the same week a year ago. Talk about what else is going on. Performance Livestock Analytics. Build the ration you need or allow your nutritionist to upgrade on the fly. Then, when you're ready to mix and deliver the feed, Performance Beef tracks to the pound each ingredient. It also does this when you're delivering the feed to each pen. This saves you from costly mistakes. For more information, go to performancelivestockanalytics.com. Let's talk about your feeder cattle market, brought to you by Specialty Risk Insurance. They are working to protect your livelihood. Your real-time index, after all of your Tuesday feeder sales had concluded, sitting at 343.64 with several bigger sales. That was actually down 11 cents from Monday's quotes, even though your futures market was that much higher. But we had We had several big sales in there, and some of them commodity type sales, so it just kind of pulls it down sometimes. And of course, you're dropping off that last day on Tuesday from a week ago when we saw some really high quotes, so could be part of it just by pulling back a little. Your latest CME cash feeder cattle index at 342.69. I'm going to be in Oakdale, California at a VITALIX producers meeting out there on Wednesday night. Hope some of you guys from around there in that part of the country come and join the conversation. We're just going to have a conversation about the market and about the things that are affecting the market. So looking forward to that out there. And Dusty with VITALIX, he's a good guy, and looking forward to hanging out with him. Let's talk about your big sales on Tuesday. Beaver County Stockyards, of course, has big sales. They had 5,300 on Tuesday. The market was kind of up and down all over the place, except for feeder steers, and that's what they had most of. Had way over half of their receipts were feeder steers, and they sold $3 to $8 higher. Beaver was your Superior Steel Sales, home of Superior Standard Livestock Equipment, stick-out sale of the day. And look at this automated market report from Cattle Market Central, and you see your best tested weights there. That's 737 head of 7-weight steers. They averaged 773, and average price on them was $358.18. Now some of those 7 weights will go to feed, others will go to grass, but that's kind of two-way cattle anymore too. 662 head of 8-weight feeder steers averaged 864 with a weighted average price of $339.67. There were 718 head of 9-weight feeder steers at Beaver. The average weight on them was 942 pounds with a weighted average price of $328.90. Talk about your heifers. Just had a couple groups that were really well tested. 285 head of the 5-weight heifer calves or light yearlings averaged 544 pounds with a weighted average price of $394.64. That's big for 5-weight heifers, guys. And 335 head of 7-weight heifers averaged 754 pounds at $329.96. Let's talk about some other areas around. Ozarks Regional Stockyard in West Plains, Missouri had 2,100 through the ring, another nearly 800 through their in-house video sale that they have each week with help from DVAuction. It was a good sale, and I tell you what, Dan Hill is a conservative market reporter. When you see these giant trends out of him, they're real, guys. I tell you what, Dan Hill started out, he worked with me for quite a while, and he's always been a really good conservative trend caller, but he called feeders at West Plains $6 to $12 higher, steer calves $15 to $20 higher, and heifer calves $5 to $10 higher, and you can bet that that's right. Stick out deal from West Plains was 58 steers, weighed 574, bring 442 right there at Ozarks Regional Stockyard. Let's go way out west to Fallon Livestock in Fallon, Nevada. They had 120 lightweight steers, weighed 406 and bring 512. And those would have been half-bloods, guys, beef on dairy type calves there, selling really well there here lately in Fallon Livestock. How about Flint Hills Stockyards in St. Mary's, Kansas? They sold 61 steers, weighed 836, right off the blue stem there, and they bring 350, 335. That's about $10 higher than your real-time index on just a flat 800 pounder. I'm sure the guys that took them to the sale were happy that they ended up doing that instead of selling them right off the ranch there. How about Lolly Brothers Livestock Market in Macon, Missouri? They sold 86 feeder heifers, weighed 638 at $383 and a quarter. Wow. But the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere on Tuesday in your Macrocin, no BS, top quote for the day indeed come out of Beaver County stockyards. It was 52 steers, weighed 769, pushing 800 pounds, guys, at 373. And that's your feeder flash for Wednesday.